This video contains subject matter that may be offensive to some viewers. Discretion is advised. The content is purely the opinion of Daryl L. Gray and the OMC, Original Man Concepts brand. The ideas and statements expressed in the video should be considered mere opinions and editorial in nature. Any resemblance to individuals' real-life experiences or circumstances is purely coincidental.
No more pussyfooting around. Come, let's fight.
What's up, family? We're doing this thing. Back again. It's your boy D. Gray. Today I'm going to do a diatribe. I haven't done a diatribe in a while. We're going to talk about some things that have kind of been going on in the news. I may be a little late on it, but we're going to get my thoughts and comments on some of the things that have been coming up in conversation with people that I know. And I think that it's important that we have differing ideas coming together to find solutions to a lot of the things that we're going through in this country that we are in. I want to first talk a little bit about this Kamala Harris thing. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of Kamala Harris. I haven't been a huge fan of Kamala Harris, really, for obvious reasons, to those of us that kind of do the research on people that we are expected to support. Now, the pervading attitude, the pervading idea that we have, or the pervading opinion that we have about Kamala is when she was the Attorney General in California, she put a lot of brothers in jail. That's the pervading attitude, that she pretty much put a lot of black folks in jail. Now, I have not done all my research on it. I think I've listened to enough people that are in the know who could accurately profess to that. So I'm going to go with that. There's enough people with enough clout that they have signed off on that particular way of thinking. Now, so we have to be careful as black people when we decide to throw whatever votes we have behind somebody who honestly, as far as we're concerned, doesn't have the same veracity to protect us as we would want us to do, what we want them to do. There's a certain idea that I go by, and I'm listening to these pundits and I'm listening to people that I trust. And I'm understanding that there's no real mechanism for doing things that are particularly effective in protecting the so-called African American in this country. That's a thing. I don't believe that there's an apparatus in place or people in place that will take that particular ideology seriously. I don't care what color they are. Blacks in high places don't really do a lot for us. They just don't. But we're expected, for those of us, or for those of you who do vote, that we're supposed to get behind them just because they're black. I'm going to tell you right now, I've been around a lot of black folks. I happen to live in a state where there aren't a lot of black people, so I'm always looking for us. But I've been around, when I was in the military, enough to understand that not everybody who's skin folk are kinfolk. That's what I'm just trying to tell you. You know, they can be the blackadis, and still want to do you dirty. And you in particular, because you're of the same hue. I know that about my people sometimes. So I think I'm speaking from authority when I tell you that just because they're black doesn't mean that they're doing the right things for us as a nation of people. Now, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, back in 2020, has said out of her own mouth that she's not going to do anything in particular just for black people. So Kamala Harris, you know, they are so bent on helping other ethnic groups, these Democrats, that I think in their minds, they literally believe that there's no that there's no racism. They'll tell you that, oh yeah, there is racism, but we're not going to do anything tangibly for you black people only. We know that there's Asian crime bills. I've heard this from other pundits. So understand, this is not me doing the independent study. I'm listening to people that I trust. There are Asian crime bills. There are LGBTQ plus crime bills. There are bills that they pass to help immigrants get a footing in this country. Billions of dollars. They're exporting money out to countries that don't give really a rat's butt about the African American as a whole. And I'm talking about the Ukraine. They're bringing immigrants in from other countries that don't give a damn about black people. The Afghans, other immigrant groups from so-called model minority places that they believe are model immigrants, but nothing specifically to target racism against black folks. And she's gonna let me quit talking. Let me show you the video. I'm gonna bring that video up. We're gonna talk about some cowboy stuff here in a minute, but let's bring this video up. So now this particular video right here is in reference to this is an interview that she did with the Griot. This is kind of a black, I don't know, lifestyle channel. I don't know. I don't really watch it, but it piqued my interest enough for me to go and check out some of the things that were said in this interview. So listen to Kamala and tell me, you're going to have to tell me in the comments what you think, but listen to this and see, based on the world that I just set up for you, the way that I'm loading this up for you, tell me what you think.
Black community has is Senator Harris, if you are elected president, what would be your agenda for the black community?
Right.
We know that black Americans are arrested at higher rates for
That's
marijuana.
right.
We're denied mortgages when we loans
exactly
for mortgages.
Right.
There's a
That's
wealth
right.
disparity. So how do you
That's
help the
right.
black community from
That's
the White
right.
House?
That's right. Well, the first step is to understand that the needs of black folks are the needs of everyone, and the needs.
She's already getting ready to tell you, honest to God, that there are no special needs for black folks. Black folks' needs are just everybody's needs. Black folks don't need anything special. Their needs are just everybody's needs. Then why would you pass laws and support policies that specifically support other people for special interest reasons? That makes no sense to me. There is a special kind of hate that goes along with the African American, and now she's sitting here. Immediately she comes out the gate talking about, well, their needs are everybody's needs. Well, if you're talking about eating and sleeping and pooping and whatever that is, housing, that's one thing. But what about the particular hate that is only geared toward us? That specific hatred toward us. And I'll give you my thoughts and comments on why she speaks this way.
Everyone are the needs of black folks. It is also equally important to understand that this is a country that had over 200 years of slavery, had Jim Crow, had legalized segregation and discrimination, and now de facto segregation and discrimination. And so while our needs are like everyone else's in terms of we want our babies to be born healthy and live a happy and productive life, we care about issues of climate change, we care about issues of national security, we also know that when you look at disparities around wealth, around home ownership, around education, around who is stopped, arrested, and incarcerated in this country, there are huge disparities based on race, and that has to be dealt with. So part of my proposal, in terms of the agenda, specifically for black folks, is about what we need to do, for example, around maternal mortality. I have actually sponsored a bill and intend, as President of the United States, to make sure it is passed, around recognizing that black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in childbirth. And when you study the issue, you know that it is not about the education level of somebody. It is not about their socioeconomic level. It is literally about their race. Remember what happened to Serena. It is literally about racial bias in the medical health professions that cause people.
Now she's saying something there. Now that means something to me, okay? Because we know that there are disparities in the way that we're treated in the middle. I had a dentist, a VA dentist that I went to get some work done. And these were two things I've had done before. And I know how long it takes. This dude of another nation, and I think you know what I'm talking about, went through those two procedures in less than 2 hours. And I'm telling you, I knew when I was sitting in that chair, this dude's just rushing through this thing. He's rushing through this thing. And I could only gather that this dude didn't give a damn about my black mouth. And I over the years, and I'm plus 50 plus, over the years, I've seen some of the questions that I've listened to the questions that were asked of me, some of the disdain in their voices when they're talking to me about whatever my health predicament might be. And so it's always a sense of like we're faking it, like we're trying to get over on somebody, that we're not legitimately sick. And so that speaks to me. That really speaks to me right there, what she's saying, because quite honestly, I have felt that in the medical community. And if I'm feeling it in 2024, you can imagine what my parents and her grandparents and her parents went through in that realm. There is a huge disparity, and it's purposeful. Let's go on.
To not take black women seriously when they walk into the door of that hospital or that emergency room in terms of how they talk about what they need. The agenda includes HBCUs, for example. I am a proud graduate of Howard University. I know that our HBCUs have raised and helped raise generations of leaders in this country, and do it in a very special way that is about nurturing and about creating high standards and challenging young people to be their best, not giving them any excuse, but giving them all kinds of support. So we need to do more. Yeah, I'm right now working on, and actually got it out of the Senate, and the House passed it around giving more money to HBCUs around their historic landmarks. But there's more to be done around creating incentives for more young people to go into the STEM professions through HBCUs. There is what we need to do around the point that you were raising about the economic disparities. I have a proposal that will be my first order of business when elected president, that is about lifting up middle-class working families. And what I'm proposing specifically is that families that are making $100,000 or less would get a tax credit that they would receive at up to $500 a month. This proposal, economists across the board have said, would be the most significant middle-class tax cut for American families and generations, and it would lift up 60% of black families out of poverty.
Mm-hmm. So it does touch black families.
Oh, absolutely, directly, directly,
Mm-hmm.
because.
But this is just one of those things where it's like all the water lifts all boats. This isn't anything specific. This is a very general thing to say. Yeah, it might help 60%, but it doesn't specifically help the African American, because the way she's speaking, and I understand what she's dancing around it. Everybody middle class is going to do this. Everybody middle class is going to do this. And even in the realm of middle class, if there's a spectrum of middle class, black people are still at the bottom part of that middle class. Still at the bottom. So it doesn't change the disparity. It just changes where the middle class would be amongst all nations. And when I say nations, I mean races. Just understand, I have to give you that. So this is what would we call this? This is a bob and weave, man. This is a smoke and mirrors. Yeah, I don't trust this verbiage at all.
When you look at the proportionality of where black families are, you see it in terms of housing and home ownership, where white families, something, I'm going to get this generally right, but something around 70% of white families own their homes versus somewhere around 40% for black families.
Yeah.
So you don't have to look very hard to see that disparities exist. But you also don't have to look very hard to see this, that when we're talking about families, regardless of their color, they have an equal desire to work hard, to love their children, and allow them to have a pathway and an equal pathway to success. Black mothers, white mothers of whatever race wake up in the middle of the night worrying about their children and their health and their well-being, and we need to address that. But I will say there's another issue that we need to address that's specific to black families, and that is this. We cannot have a society where a father or a mother, by the time their son turns about 12 years old, has to sit down and have the talk with him about how he will be stopped or chased or arrested or even killed because of the color of his skin.
And so
on the face of this, you would hear this, you would watch this and think, well, she's saying everything you're saying she's not saying. She's saying everything right now. And it sounds real nice. And even me, I'm sitting here right now, and I've watched this maybe once before, and I'm going, maybe I'm being a little too narrow-minded on this. You know, maybe I'm too myopic. I think that's the word I'm looking for about this. Let me make sure I'm saying the right word, because I don't like saying wrong words. Myopic is a word I don't use too often. Hold on a second. Maybe I'm being too myopic. Let's see. Right. Sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I'm too myopic about this, right? Maybe I am, but let's let her talk. Let me see what she says.
how do you intend to change that from the White House? How would you change policy around that?
Part of it is that the president makes a decision about who's going to run the United States Department of Justice. Currently, under this administration, they have shut down the pattern and practice investigations.
So we know this is an older video. We know this is an older video. I may have to find the other video where she says she doesn't. This might not even be the video. We're getting close to the end of it. This might not even be the video, but I will find it here in a sec. But we see where she's going with this. We see where, you know, she's saying all the right things, but let's let it play. And then if I have to find the other one, I'll find the other one real quick.
That involve investigating police departments that have a pattern and practice of discrimination. Those need to be reopened and revived with vigor, because no American should want that a police department that has a history and a pattern and practice of discrimination should be able to get away with that without consequence and accountability. Another issue is what happens through the Department of Justice around consent decrees, which are basically a requirement that police departments that have a history of that kind of behavior, they're under a court order for supervision. This Department of Justice has essentially shut those down.
Right.
First order of business for me would be to revive those.
Okay, that wasn't the video where she says she won't do anything specifically for black folks. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Let me see if I can find it, because she said it. I don't want to have this video up here and I've said all this stuff. Understand what we're about to watch. We talk about reparations. We talk about reparations. I believe in reparations. I believe in reparations. I believe in tangibles. I don't believe in symbolic reparations. I believe in money to the descendants of slaves. African slaves to this country. I believe it. I've watched all the pundits talk about it. I've watched all the people in the know about it. I've done a little research on it, and I'm telling you, I believe in reparations as a tangible thing. Money in my pocket. Money in my pocket, not just symbolic things. And they'll talk about, money for school and tax breaks. Okay, all of that too. All of that too. But I want the same thing that you give the Native Americans. I want the same thing you've been paying the Germans. That you've been paying the Jews in Israel. I want the same things. The same type of energy. The same money you sending over to the Ukraine and that you send to these other countries. I want the same thing for us here in America, that are descendants of people who were genocided, slaughtered, raped, murdered, massacred, whatever it is. The same thing. Reparations. But let's see what Kamala has to say about reparations. Let's see what she's got to say.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues.
But this goes back to what I said earlier. Unequal footing for a Black person is different than an unequal footing for a white person. Even in the same bracket, even in the same middle income bracket. So for you to say that it helps everyone in under $100,000, well, there's a person who makes $99,000 doing the same job, and then there's another Black person or African American person that does the same job for $10,000, $20,000 less. And if the only standard is below 100,000 and you do that, it's still, the disparity is still there. It makes no sense what she's saying. This is just somebody deciding that's not a thing for Black people to have unto themselves. But I got another video I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you another video. Now understand, this is an old video. This is from 2020 when she was it 2020 or whenever she was running? This is one of those things where now she is literally running for president and she is the nominee. And if these things go into place, she's still not addressing the issues. I'm sure her platform has not changed. This is when she was running for president, so her platform has not changed. I would bet money on that. So what she's saying is a nothing burger.
That have resulted in the greatest disparities. And we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this. Any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, because whatever benefits that Black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country. Right?
So this is a woman quite honestly, if her thoughts and her thought processes are still the same. This is a woman who, and I'm going to say this because her father isn't from here. Really, he's Jamaican, but whatever. He's not from here. He's not from the continental United States. His mother definitely isn't from here. This is a person who wants to pretend to be African American. I went to an HBCU. My mom and dad were black. That doesn't make you. This is coming from a person, and I'm actually a little bit later going to defend her in this regard, because I believe there's a mindset that I want to just make clear, no matter what, if you think she's a black person or not, because there's a flavor of black person that I'm going to bring up in a little while. But this is coming from a woman who doesn't really have any real investment in the so-called African American. She just doesn't. She doesn't see it. Her allegiances are different. So for her to sit there and say, I'm not going to do anything specifically for black folks, yeah, but you'll do stuff specifically for other people, and I'm going to bring that up in a minute. That was specifically for other types of people. Yeah, I recognize the disparities. I recognize it. But anything that's good for a black person is good enough for everybody. Not taking into consideration the special circumstances when it comes to the African American. The special circumstances that we deal with. That other Americans, maybe even in the same income bracket, have to deal with. This is lazy talk. This is just policy for everybody because you're trying to appease everybody, which I guess in politics is a thing to do. But don't say you're a black person. You're out here for black African American ideals and try to pretend to be African American, and you're not doing things specifically for us like you've done specifically for other ethnic groups. This is the biggest bob and weave, smoke and mirrors that I'm seeing in this whole thing. It's a policy that I really am not surprised that they think this way. But it bothers me that a lot of people out here are bowing the knee, bending the knee to these people who ultimately are going to do the exact same things they've been doing for centuries. And we're only supposed to deal with them because we don't want that other moron, Trump, in the freaking office, who in all actuality is just saying what everybody, I guess she's saying what everybody wants to hear, and so is he. This is why the Christ needs to come back. I'm not going to get into that right now because I'm telling you right now, I can go on for hours about that. But let's bring up this other video. So specifically, she says she's not going to do anything for black people, specifically, and not just for them. She's not even giving credence to the special circumstances that we live in every day and have been living in every day since the inception of the transatlantic slave trade. She's not. She understands it. She understands that it happened. She understands that these things have gone on, but she has no real remedy for it because she's worried about everyone else too. So don't sit there and tell me that she's black. Okay, anyway, I can go back in that for 15 minutes, but let's bring up this other video where she says she ain't gonna do nothing specifically for black folks. And she was serious about that. It was almost laughable to her. She was serious about that, but let's bring up this other one. Now, in this particular video, let me get there real quick. In this particular video, she's talking to a place. Let me, somebody texted me, hold on a second. And they're gonna call me at 2:20 anyway. So let's look up this AIPAC. All right. Now, I'm going to bring this up so you know understand something here. There's probably a two-edged sword here that I want to get into. So you saw the other one where she's at this APAC conference, it looks like. So let's bring that up. So what is APAC? What is APAC? Okay. Let's go to what that is. All right. So this is their website, who we are. Proud pro-Israel Americans. Right? And I can read that. AIPAC brings together Democrats and Republicans to advance our shared mission. Building bipartisan support for the U.S.-Israel relationship is an American value we are proud to champion. So this is where Kamala is. Well, that's not the right one. Here we go. So she's at this AIPAC conference now. Okay. And of course, this is an 18-minute video. We're not going to get in. I'm just going to get to the part where she gets real specific about who she is going to support. And understand, if you've been around the military and government as long as I have, the things she's going to name off are in the billions of dollars. No reparations, but they got money for this.
And as I fight to promote human rights and security, Israel and the Jewish community will always be a priority for me.
A priority. They will be a priority for her. Okay. Let's see what else she's got to say.
And that is why, as senator, I am particularly focused on 3 areas where I believe the United States and Israel can expand our cooperation and where California plays an important and central role. And the 3 are defense, cybersecurity, and water security. So let's think about it. First, defense. In the midst of uncertainty and turmoil, America's support for Israel's security must be rock solid. And as Iran continues to launch ballistic missiles, while it arms and funds its terrorist proxy Hezbollah, we must stand with Israel. As Hamas maintains its control of Gaza and fires rockets across Israel's southern border, we must stand with Israel.
So understand, this is an older video. This has been out for a while. One caveat to this is her husband is of the Jewish persuasion. So I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I'm just pointing out something.
And as ISIS and civil war in Syria destabilize the region, displacing millions and threatening shared security interests, we must support all those affected by ongoing violence and terror, and we must stand with Israel. Our defense relationship is critical to both nations, which is why I support the United States' commitment to provide Israel with $38 billion in military assistance over the next decade.
$38 billion. $38 billion. She ain't gonna do shit specifically for the African Americans in this country. But she gonna toss 38 million across that water. And this is before the Ukraine stuff. This was years ago. So you know her, she hasn't changed. Her stance on this hasn't changed. $38 billion. But she ain't doing shit specifically for us. No.
It is why I support full funding for Israel, including for the Arrow, David Sling, and the Iron Dome missile defense systems, which save lives. And that's why I am fully committing to maintaining Israel's qualitative military edge. At the same time, the United States must never permit Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. The Iran nuclear deal must be vigorously enforced through robust monitoring, inspection, and verification.
Okay, I don't need to listen to her vouch for another nation of people that don't care about us either. So I'm not even going to sweat that. But you heard it from her mouth. Her policy hasn't changed. I think who she's married to has a lot to do with that. And I'm not saying that anybody who's married outside their nation is like a sucker for them, but you got to watch yourself. If you decided to be with somebody outside your nation, you got to watch yourself or how your alliances align. This in particular here is one of those times when I'm at a crossroads. I'm not even at a crossroads because I'm going to tell you I think this is crap. I think what she's saying is doo-doo. I think that her policies are going to be doo-doo because it's not, as much as she likes to play act, character play, what do they call that? Cosplay, black. She's African American. She tries to talk and dance and put on her chucks and do all that stuff. I think it's demeaning. I think it's all symbolic overtures to us. I think it's crap. I will be the first one to tell you that I don't particularly like Kamala Harris. I don't particularly like her. I didn't particularly like Biden either. I think that those people have done nothing for the so-called African American in this country. And I think that they try to play like they're advocates, and they're really just another group of the same types of people that we deal with anyway. I sincerely believe that they are just another section of the arm that deals with us poorly. They're just another part of an arm that treats us poorly. You know, the same arm that punches us in the face, they're just one of the joints, one of the knuckles, whatever it is. It's just part of the same thing that's punching us in the face. It's like an abusive husband that beats your ass and then tells you that they love you. I'm sorry, and I love you. This is the kind of abusive relationship that we have with Democrats. And don't get it twisted, because I'm not a Trump fan. I think that guy is a comedian. He's hilarious to me. He's a funny dude. He's just funny. And he's saying all the racist, goofy nonsense that everybody else wants him to say. That's his whole thing. Just saying a bunch of goofy racist nonsense that everybody wants him to say. And he's not going to be good for America. You know, whatever your ideal America is, he's not good for that either. You know, I guess my whole thing about politics is they wonder why we don't really want to vote. For what? For what? What am I voting for? I'm voting for a bunch of the same stuff. And anybody out there saying you should just vote because we don't want Trump in there, what difference does it make? It doesn't matter if it's him or her. It doesn't matter. None of them are going to do anything specifically for us. None of them. We're still in the same position we've been in since the Voting Rights Act. And if you know anything about that, that could be taken away too. See, this is why I don't get my mind around all these politicians and get enamored with these people, because the Democrats feel the same way that the Republicans do. They just do it softly. I said in my little book, Sour Pill, that you can get on Amazon, I talked about racism becoming, it's like back when they first made the first cars, how clunky and loud and obnoxious and smoky engines were back then. That was racism back then. Now, as the cars have advanced over the decades, over the century, or however long a car has been around, now you got cars you can barely even hear. You know, they're more efficient. They're more, agile. They do all that. That's racism of today. It's not as loud. It's quiet. It's more advanced. It's very hard to discern what's bad and what's not. Leaves you guessing. And this is what this kind of nonsense is right here. Saying all the right things in a cursory way, but ain't gonna do nothing specific for you because you're just like everybody else. That's basically racism denial. That's denialism. Not gonna do anything specific for you, but there's a whole nother nation of people across the water. Anybody but you. Anybody but you. I'm going to do something specific for. And got dollar amounts on that bad boy. You know what the United States could do with $38 billion across this country for inner city people, black folks? So, what that could do for us? Not to mention the hundreds of billions of dollars they sent over there to the Ukraine. What that could do for each and every African American in this country. They won't do it. Before Biden dropped out, you had the audacity to say, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Every time I hear that, let me be quiet. Anyway, look. I told you I was going to say something that's probably going to go counter to everything that I just said. The one thing that we have to remember, no matter what Kamala says she is at any given time, whether she be Indian, day one of her vice presidency, and she becomes African American, 3 years, 6 months into the presidency, her vice presidency, right? No matter what she calls herself at any given time, these people still think she's a nigger. No matter who she's married to, no matter who she deals with, no matter what kind of nonsense comes out of her mouth as far as the African American person, them people on the other side of the aisle, or them people who are not like us, still think she's a nigger. They still think she's a nigger. And that's the tragic part of it. They still think she ain't shit, no matter what she calls herself. So she can profess to be anything. But these people still think she's they can try to bring up her policy. She is not experienced enough. She doesn't know. In the back of their minds, they can hate her laugh. They can hate everything about her. But in the back of their minds, they're going, hate that nigga. F that nigga. But that's what it's all about. Point blank, period. So you vote accordingly if you vote. I'm going to sit out on the couch because I don't deal with this nonsense, really. But for those of you that are, and you think it's as valuable as you think it is, you better think about how you're voting. Maybe you feel like you have no choice this time. And I'm going to make it easy for you. Make it easy for you. Do you vote for the racist? Let me say that again. Do you vote for the blatant racist? Or do you vote for the person who wants to be like you sometimes? Because that's what they all think of her anyway. She's a nigga anyway. So really you have two bad choices. What is the, what's the least poisonous way to go? Do I want to poison myself a little bit or completely? That's all I got to say. So anyway, I'm done. I went almost an hour, but whatever that is. That's my diatribe for this week. I'll be back up to do a brew school video in a little while and a cut of the week whenever I get a chance to. So I just want to say you guys have a great one. And hey, be kind to one another, no matter what, because we are commanded to live peaceably amongst all men.